Okay, so let's talk about brass, woodwinds, and strings now. And we're on the downside of the How to Mic Like a Pro webinar with some exciting announcements coming up here at the end. So first of all, saxophone. Saxophone, that nice jazz sort of an edge. You want to have that edge off the saxophone. And there are a couple of ways to do that, either off the stand or on the mic, on the bell itself. So let's take a look at stand mount first.
All right, well, when stand mounting a saxophone, let's first realize that there's 4 different types in the saxophone family. There's an alto, a tenor, and a bass. Oh, and a soprano. So to mic, the saxophone's bell is really the primary source of sound that we need to realize. We started by placing the mic at the bell approximately 2 to 3 inches away. Now, the challenge with brass instruments is, including the trumpet and the trombone, is avoiding excess breath noises. We typically place the mic at the edge of the bell and then adjust the angle to shape how bright the sound is and how much breath we hear. Now, the center of the bell, it's the brightest, however, it's the most sensitive to wind blast and volume changes as well. Now, 45 degrees yields a more balanced tone and a little bit less breath. 90 degrees pointed across the bell gives us a really nice mellow sound if that's what we're looking for. So in the next clip, we're going to listen to a soprano sax with the MD421. We're going to hear 2 clips, adjusting the mic to the extremes of each, and this is going to help us demonstrate the tonal range. Now, you can definitely hear the difference as the mic is more angled across the bell. Now, let's look at the balanced approach at 45 degrees, same microphone, but we're going to try it on an alto sax this time.
All right, so that sounds good. I would probably try the 45 degrees to start out. It seems like a good balance, but all of them are valid. I prefer a little bitier sound on my sax. I want that edge, but I can certainly understand if we, place the microphone at a 90-degree axis, that mellower sound could be useful for some genres. But again, I like a little bit more bite, particularly if I'm mixing in with worship. So let's talk about bell-mounted.
Well, stand mounting works great if you have a line of horns and then just pointing the microphones to each individual instrument. However, bell mounting is great for a solo performer, and it allows you to attach a gooseneck mic to the bell to really provide a lot of mobility that we use so many times. So in this case, we used an E908T. It's a condenser element, and it has a gooseneck arm to adjust the positioning, and the length of the gooseneck arm is adjustable as well. Now, the E908T has reduced sensitivity for the high SPL that can often be produced from a brass instrument. The clip-on mics have great benefits, including a consistent distance from the sound source. The mic moves with the player. And with the gooseneck, again, you can really adjust that angle perfectly the way that you want it. Now, a lot of challenges are that it can pick up some more mechanical vibrations or key clips, so definitely be aware of that. Now, we'll listen to the 3 saxophones, tenor, alto, and soprano, with the E908T clipped to the bell.
So for worship sound, that's really more of the sound I'm looking for, a little bit of bite, a little bit of breath and pad noise in there, a little bit of grit, I guess I would call it. So the 908T works pretty well for that. Now, guys have taken microphones like the MKE2, the MKE2, a lapel microphone, and clip them to the side of the bell or other lapel microphones, and those can work. The thing I like about this type of an arrangement is the clip is padded, it's designed to go onto a bell, and I'm putting the microphone directly into the bell, and I've got a little bit of rejection off the side so that I can change the position. It's really hard to change the position when using a lapel microphone and just kind of taping it onto the side of the bell. So the 908T, I like that actually in all of those three saxes, a really good combination. Now, I imagine you could use this on trumpet and trombone as well.
Right, the same concepts apply to trumpet and trombone. Now, I will say be aware of pointing the mic directly into the center of the bell, as it will pick up some excessive breath that might be undesirable, especially in the case of a trumpet, and that can also be excessively bright as well.
Okay, great. And like I say, I don't mind, a little bit of bite and grit and spit in my sound. So again, you can play it however you like. Just do it purposefully, and that's what we're trying to do here with the webinar, is help you understand that when you place the mic in this position, this is what you get, grit and spit. When you place the microphone, say at 90 degrees, you get mellow and smooth. What do you need? What does your music director want to hear, and how does it blend into the piece of music? Let's take a look at a flute. Now, flute, again, a couple of different ways to go, stand or clipping it on. So let's take a look at what you did up at the barn on the flute.
Well, now a flute can most easily be mic'd at a distance, and this allows the sound to bloom and develop, and it also minimizes mouth noise as well, breath noise. The sweet spot on a flute is between the keys and the mouthpiece. As you move the mic closer to accommodate louder stages, perhaps, you need to be careful not to get excess breath or noise or key clicks from the other side. So we used an E914 small diaphragm condenser placed about 4 to 6 inches away, aimed directly at, actually aimed between the mouthpiece and the keys. We'll listen to that, but we also experiment with an MK2, which is a miniature lav mic. Let's take a listen. First, we'll listen to the E914 in a close mic'd position, and then we'll cut to the MKE2.
Okay, so you heard both the MKE2 kind of velcroed on. I didn't care for that as much. I definitely like the 914. We've used that, as you've seen, on several instruments, and it is clear and it is articulate and full as well. So a great condenser microphone. I definitely recommend that if you don't have to have a mic where somebody's moving around on a wireless mic. But if you've got to put them on a wireless microphone, a MKE2 velcroed to the flute actually work out pretty well. All right, so we've got about 13 minutes left in the webinar, and I'm going to tell you about our Try It Free program, where you can take any of the microphones that we've demonstrated today, bring them into your own church at no charge. We'll ship them to you, and you can try them out for 2 weeks and see how they work for you. It's a great program that we have, the Try It Free program. We have speakers, we have mixers, we have a wide variety of gear, LED lights, and so you'll want to know a little bit more about the Try It Free program coming up. So let's go to stringed instruments, and this will wrap up the demo portion as we move through a couple of the stringed instruments, starting out with the violin.
Well, now with the violin and other stringed instruments like this, there's 2 approaches we can take. There's close miking and distance miking. We'll either be contending with a string section, maybe a quartet or larger even. In that case, we'd want distance miking. However, if it's a more soloist act, then we'll want to mic them individually using a close technique. Now, for distance miking, we'll use that on a group, as we said, but we definitely want a condenser microphone. We want to capture the richness and the detail that instrument has to offer. So for a group, we'll suspend the condenser above the instruments, catching a nice blended sound of that section. The approach is similar to miking a choir, as you might think. You want to capture the section, so you can't hear the individual instruments. Close miking, you do have, or miking a little too close, you do have that problem sometimes. Now, the benefit is stringed instruments, they have a sound that evolves, it develops with space. So the closer you get, sometimes you have a little bit more unwanted artifacts. So distance miking really allows you to capture the instrument as your ears might hear it. So at the barn here, we had the opportunity to try out distance miking technique with this violin. We suspended a E914 about 2 feet above our performer, and we pointed the mic at the instrumentalist's F-hole, roughly halfway up the body. Let's give this a listen. That was a little bit more of a distant miking technique. We'll look at a close miking technique, except let's look at it with the cello instead. Again, it works well for individual performers on louder stages. In this case, we used a MK4 large diaphragm condenser up pretty close, probably about 6 to 8 inches from the instrument. Again, we're aiming pretty close to that F-hole. Let's listen.
I love that sound, and of course, if you were with us earlier, I told you how much I like the MK4, which is the large diaphragm condenser microphone. What I heard there was the fullness, along with, again, the string bowing sound that gives it its character. That's the way I would go. The distant miking technique just really rarely works for me in any sort of a live environment. It's just too far away, too much background noise, too much room noise, not enough gain before feedback. So I definitely go closer, and the large diaphragm gives you that warmth that, say, some of the other microphones just aren't going to be able to give you when they're up close. Okay, let's take a look finally at the upright bass.
Now, the upright bass offers very rich detail. However, a challenge is there's not much volume or projection from it. So it really requires us to get close up on the instrument in order to pick it up properly. The F-hole can provide a great low end. Above the F-hole, you tend to get a little bit more gain and articulation from the neck and strings. So in this case, we opted for a dynamic E602. This is, again, a microphone that you might use on a bass amp or a kick drum. We placed the E902 roughly 6 inches from the instrument, just above the F-hole. We then angled the mic down toward the bridge and the F-hole. The proximity to the neck and the strings, the cardioid pattern really picks up low end near this F-hole, but also some more of the attack and string note off of the neck, hitting the mic on the side. So let's give this a listen.
All right, so that had the pluckiness and had the nice low end, and we were using the dynamic instead of the condenser microphone, but again, large diaphragm. So as you've worked, as you've listened to the webinar, it's been somewhat confusing if you haven't been able to keep track of which microphone was on which instrument. And it doesn't have to be a Sennheiser mic, but since Sennheiser sponsored the webinar, we thought, hey, let's show you what Sennheiser microphones sound like, and they do sound fabulous. So let's kind of review the microphones that we were looking at and using. On the instruments, we had the drums, we start out with those, the guitar and the bass, the piano. We had organic vibey instruments like mandolin and ukulele. We had the percussion, the conga and the djembe, the brass, the sax and the flute, and then the stringed instruments, the violin, cello, and the upright. So the mics we used, let's start out with the MD421. Again, the classic Sennheiser microphone that you're all familiar with here. We'll move it right to here. And we had that on the guitar amp and the sax. It's a large diaphragm dynamic. Okay? The next thing on the guitar, we showed you the 421, but we also used the popsicle microphone. And here's the front of the popsicle microphone there. Remember, we just dropped that right down in front of the amp and slid it up and down. And that made a great sound for the amplifiers. Okay? And then we saw the large diaphragm dynamic here. We've got the 602. We used that on the kick. And then we used that on the bass amp. And remember, we used that underneath the congas to give you a nice full sound with that. Large diaphragm dynamic, that's the 602. The 604, remember that great clamp setup that we have. They used that on the snares, the toms, the conga topped. It's got the serrated clamp, if I can show you that right there. Okay, you can see the serration, and it just hooks on the bottom of the rim, pops over like this, flexible, resilient clamp, and can aim at an angle. Okay, and it's also removable, so you can use it on a stand. Then we have the 906, or excuse me, the 902. We used that on the upright bass and the djembe. 906 on the dobro, and finally on the djembe top, we've got the 905. Okay, so let's go to the condenser microphones now. Remember how many times we used that? A good small diaphragm condenser is a utility microphone that gives you great fullness, but also wonderful articulation. So in this case, it was the E914. We used that on the acoustic guitar, the drum overheads, the mandolin, the dobro, the violin, and the flute. It sounded great on all of those. The MK4, kind of my new favorite large diaphragm condenser here, the MK4. I'll go this way. And we used that on the acoustic guitar and the cello, and gave it that really fat sound, but again with articulation. And the E908T is the one with the clip. Clips right on the edge of the drums. Let's see, there we go. You can see the clip. And has the gooseneck, and we brought that down into the saxophone and use that for trumpet and trombone as well. And finally, the good old standby MKE2, MKE2. I've used these as lapel microphones, used them in broadcast applications, so where you needed a very small microphone, you can clip that right on like that. You'll see that, and you can barely see it. You just go ahead and put the cable right through your shirt. And so you'll see this microphone on network broadcasts all the time, sometimes in a pair of microphones. And it also works in a pinch for some of the other instruments that we were miking, and we used it on the flute this time. So again, we wanted to let you know that there are no absolutes. This is a creative endeavor. So hopefully we've allowed you to hear through this demo some of the different ways to use these microphones, and not every way is the right way. So no matter what you read in books about, well, put the microphone here, listen to the microphone, listen to the instrument, listen to the source, and then mix it based upon what you're trying to accomplish in that particular song or for the worship style that you're trying to produce. Layer it in. Not all the instruments can fill one space in the music. You have to be able to layer them in. Sometimes that means an instrument will be thinner, and you'll create that thinness by how you mic it and how you EQ it, because you want it to lay right into a narrow section of the sound spectrum. Again, all the instruments can't fill the entire sound spectrum, so layer them in so that you get the characteristic of that instrument, but maybe not the fullness that muddies up other instruments that are designed to have their fundamentals in the lower range.